I wanted to talk a bit about childlessness in the workplace. Now, the fact is, as a woman who's been trying to conceive and possibly also trying to do that whilst in the workplace, you've probably already had a considerable amount of challenges of balancing your TTC journey with workplace issues. The thing is that work is a part of society, and our society is predominantly pronatalist. There's that word again. Whilst you were trying to conceive, it was tough enough, but you were on a socially acceptable path. Now you are never going to be a mother. Like the rest of society, your workplace and your colleagues don't really know what box you fit in anymore. It's going to be really important to set some boundaries with your colleagues so that you can protect your mental and emotional well-being. However, whilst you're in the early stages of grief, this may be just too damn hard for you, and that's okay too. You know, you can't push yourself to be an advocate and to be a role model and all these things. You know, if your best line of defense at the moment is crying in the bathroom, that is a perfectly valid response. You don't need to push yourself to kind of do things that you're just not feeling strong enough emotionally to deal with yet. There will be time when you feel a little bit like you can do this. So, for example, if you feel strong enough, you could ask your colleagues to let you know when someone's bringing a baby into the office, so you can be out at that time. Tell them that you are grieving your own losses and that you look forward to the day when your joy for them does not collide with your grief for your own losses. Unfortunately, even something as simple as this, people can be remarkably hostile about being asked to modify their behavior around motherhood boasting, as pronatalism has made it the most noteworthy female achievement currently. I just need you to understand it wasn't always this way. This is a kind of a cultural moment. It wasn't like this in the 70s and the 80s when I was growing up. When I was growing up, if a pop star or film star got pregnant, they had to disappear from view. They might not even be seen ever again. They were certainly never seen with a pregnancy bump, and their children were probably might be seen when they're about 9 or 10 years old. But it was certainly not cool to their status for them to be a mum. And then we moved to the 80s, and I remember when Princess Diana, the Princess of Wales, was pregnant, and it was that she really broke the mold. It was the first time when sort of a very famous celebrity was out in public with a baby bump, except it was these enormous billowing navy blue maternity smocks, which was sort of like a navy blue marquee that kind of covered everything, but it was still radical. And if we then fast forward, you know, from the 80s to when Beyonce had her twins, and she nearly broke the internet on Instagram with these photographs of her, her belly bump on view. She was expecting twins with her sort of styled to look like a Yoruba fertility goddess. You know, such a huge shift in pregnancy being a private something to being a very public achievement. And those magazines that you see in the supermarket covered with Z-list celebrities who happen to be pregnant, you know, those weren't around when I was growing up. And I look at them and I think, so I don't know who you are, but you're famous for getting knocked up. Woohoo! I'm sorry. It's a really interesting cultural moment. And I think looking at it sociologically, I think the glorification of motherhood as a sort of status symbol is a kind of backlash against feminism and against women's equality. It's like, okay, so you've got the vote, and you can earn your own money and you can keep it and you can buy your own houses and you can be lawyers and professors and doctors and all of these things. But the really important thing about being a woman is being pregnant and being a mother. So there's something culturally going on, which is amazingly actually anti-women, with this glorification, this public glorification of pregnancy and maternity. I don't want you to think I'm against pregnancy and maternity and motherhood. I'm not. It's just the way it's being manipulated socially to make people look amazing or feel terrible. Because actually, even, you know, it doesn't necessarily make mums feel great either. How do you match up to these celebrity mothers and their celebrity lives and their celebrity pregnancies and their celebrity babies? We can't. Even they aren't really having that experience. It's just what it looks like. So, but this makes it really hard, really, really hard to be childless. in the workplace because this very visible identity that sort of validates our status as women has been denied to us. And I think this whole kind of, bring your whole self to work movement is a little bit disingenuous. It's bring your whole self to work, but bring the bits that we approve of. Because you're not meant to bring your childlessness to work. No, you're just meant to pick the bits that we like. What about the issues with your aging parents? Maybe you can bring those to work. What about your grief over your divorce? Maybe something. So it's like certain bits are allowed that we can all kind of rah-rah about, and other bits aren't. Finding a balance between and respecting the needs of all employees in the workplace around childlessness and maternity and motherhood and parenthood is something very few employers have any notion of yet. But it is a real hot button issue. But with the changing demographics of more and more non-parents in the workplace coming up, and also I think the entry of sort of more and more of Gen Z into the workplace, who have a very different mindset around fairness and equality to, Gen X dinosaurs like me, and even the, millennials, that they are, I often look at Gen Z, it's kind of like my kids would have been Gen Z. They are as different to me. They feel as different to me as the kind of my baby boomer parents feel to me. They're like a new race. They are going to change the way this is dealt with in the workplace. So I think over time, over the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot of changes in this area. Now, once you personally have done enough of your own grief work, you may feel strong enough to speak to HR and to your DEIB team, that's diversity, equality, inclusion and belonging, about how you are experiencing discrimination in your workplace as a non-parent. And I use that term non-parent rather than childless or child-free because it's a more neutral term and I think more suitable for the workplace because it's actually none of anyone's business why you don't have children. You're not there to give them chapter and verse on your medical story. It's like you're actually there to work, but you are experiencing discrimination in the workplace just because you happen to be a non-parent. And this is something really hard, often really hard for parents in the workplace to appreciate, because what they often feel is that when a non-parent raises a discrimination issue about, well, actually, I get to have, just because I don't have children, why does that mean I never get to have time off at Christmas? How is that fair? Parents can often feel that when non-parents ask for support, not even support, just equality of opportunity in the workplace, that they are asking, number one, they are not acknowledging the struggles of parenting and being a parent in the workplace. We do. And also that they sort of want to take away some of the gains and some of the support that parents do have in the workplace. And I think it's really important to realize, to recognize that you might come up against that because it's very difficult. Human beings find it exceptionally difficult to recognize their own privilege. And there are certain privileges that come with being a parent in our society. That doesn't mean it's not also really fucking hard. We're not saying that being a parent in the workplace isn't hard. We're saying these things are also challenging. And what we need to do is we need to grow our understanding of the experiences of our employees and how those intersect with the workplace. It's not about this group deserves our support and this group doesn't. Or it's about, I gave an interview to a really amazing podcast run by Toby Milden, who's a DEIB guy, and I'll share a link with you, where I talked about how workplaces can become more inclusive. And it's not about taking a piece of the pie of the support that parents get in the workplace. It's about growing the pie bigger. It's about making sure that everyone in the workplace get the needs that are appropriate to the workplace or that are getting in the way of them showing up for work met. So I think we're going to be hearing a lot about this, more about this in the next few years. So I'm an advisor at an organization called the New Legacy Institute, which is the world's first interdisciplinary global policy institute on the global impact of pronatalism and a social justice platform for people without children. We are looking at how these issues are written into policy at a legal, governmental and business level, and how we can start to change those things. Because, for example, 50 years ago, our brothers and sisters who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender faced all of these issues. And they saw, by creating changes in the workplace, which became legal changes, that meant that people who weren't personally impacted by these issues had to start considering them. They had to make adjustments, and they had to reflect the diverse experience of their workforce. That then filtered out into society, and it's now perfectly normal to take into account those viewpoints. Now, if you consider that when I was growing up and I was watching TV in the 1970s, you only had to have a gay character in a sitcom or in a film for them to be the joke character. It was perfectly accepted. They were just there to be funny. And actually, even the fact that they were gay was the thing that was funny. And there were these terrible homophobic jokes around them that everyone was laughing at, because it was completely acceptable at that time to be homophobic. And, you know, and now that those things actually would be illegal, and it would be considered a hate crime. And our society has moved forward. I won't say it's moved forward enough. There's always going to be more room for improvement. And change is an organic process. It's not a straight line that things just like, oh, they're here and they're going to get better. They're messy. But I really think that there will become more and more awareness of non-parents in the workplace over the next 10 years. Really, really big change. And I'll share links for my work with, I'm a volunteer advisor at the New Legacy Institute, and that Toby Milden interview. The Toby Milden one was really a professional one. So it's really for HR and DEIB people. It's only 30 minutes long. It's a really great one to share with your HR team, because that's the audience of his podcast. So it's very, very practical about, you know, what they can do. And one of the things I recommend, like the low-hanging fruit, and the easiest way in to maybe to get your workplace to start thinking about this, is to ask them to include World Childless Week on their Awareness Days program, and perhaps bring someone in from the World Childless Week team like me. I've been an ambassador, a volunteer ambassador for World Childless Week since the beginning, and it runs every September. It's usually the third week of September, and it's a great way to for the organization to raise awareness, and for childless people in the organization to find each other. Because if you all end up on the same webinar and things like that, it sort of gives that third option again. It's not me talking about my childlessness. It's saying, could we have some events programmed into our calendar about this? That's a lot easier conversation to have with your HR team than actually, you know, babies in the office. You can say, and actually there are some great webinars on the World Childless Week website that we've done already around childlessness in the workplace and things like that. There's a lot of education there that you can share with your HR team. And something I have to say is that sometimes we also need to think about supporting the HR teams and the DEIB people as well, because they are often managing other people's complex fertility journeys, other people's maternity leaves, and they might be struggling with childless grief. We need a lot more awareness of how many people are dealing with this. And we need to have a lot more empathy and systems to support each other out in the world and also in the workplace. Some of the things we need to kind of see change around are holiday allocations, maternity cover, impromptu leave, which as a childless person, when you just want to dash out of the office because there's something urgent going on, you're told to take a half day of annual leave. Whereas your colleague has dashed out for emergency childcare issues a number of times, and you've covered for her, and no one's ever turned a blind, no one minds. So it's like, it's not that we don't want that to be possible for them and that we don't want to cover for them. There's often this idea by asking for equality, we're being resentful. It's like, no, I just want that when I need to dash out of the office, that's also acceptable, because I do actually have a life as well. So there's lots more we could talk about that, and I'll share lots of resources for you, webinars you can watch and podcasts you can listen to, and organizations that can support you in the workplace. But most of all, support each other. Be that place where people can bring their gripes to, about what it's like, that once again, the work event is a family-friendly event. So you're going to be surrounded by other people's kids and you're not sure if you can cope with that yet. Or the dreaded scan bushing, the company intranet, that flashes up a sonogram. I mean, I try to say to people, how do you think that sonogram lands on people who the last time they saw one was to find out that their baby had died? This is not universally good news. This is private. This is people's private lives. It should not be on the company WhatsApp, on the intranet, all of these things. We really, really need to raise awareness in the workplace around sensitivity training for this. Yes, we can celebrate parents, but not at the expense of mental health and well-being of other people in the workplace. Rant over.